Yo, what's up, people? I'm your host, Jay Will, and I would like to welcome you to Inspire Guys People, where we balance faith and business to guide you to your purpose. Today is all about being a Christian content creator. I have a guest, Alexandria Chrisele. She's a photographer and educator. We're going to have a dope conversation today. But look, man, hopefully y'all are, living it up, doing well, and having a good Saturday. I don't do Saturday shows super often, but I actually think it's pretty dope because ain't nobody. Well, I can't say ain't nobody at work, but the snow is melted here in Michigan. That's A plus. The Lions winning. U of M won the national championship, so we doing good in Detroit. And I'm gonna tell you like this: craziest thing to me is that the Detroit Lions are unifying the city of Detroit in ways that I have never seen before. Like legitimately unifying the city. And it's dope to me because especially the last 4 years, y'all know how it is. People ready to be mad at each other for any and everything, politics, color of your skin, you live across the street on the left side, I live on the, it's like all these reasons for everybody fighting and tripping. So I'm just gonna be real. It's been a blessing to me because I'm like being, in and around the city of Detroit, as some people corrected me, like the state of Michigan is united, and that is facts. Um, but it's like everybody being nice, all the stores selling out of their merchandise. You got Lions gear left and right. So let's hope the Lions keep winning. You know what I'm saying? So God could keep blessing the state of Michigan. And that's that. But today we're gonna have a conversation around Christian content creation. And so if you're a Christian content creator or someone who has maybe you got a youngin that's like, you trying to train your child up in the way they should go and figure out like how they can get some content of substance to help them on that journey. That's what Inspire Guys People is all about, having these real conversations, you know what I'm saying, to really kick it and pick someone's brain. Alexandria is, like I said, a photographer. She has a youth program, the young influencers, and she's someone that I've just kind of followed for a long time on social media. And I'm really impressed with people who are consistent. That's something that always stands out to me because let's just be real, especially you follow people on social media. Sometimes people all over the place, but she's been consistent. I've watched her kind of from afar. Really low key would love to do a photo shoot with her, other than the fact that she just like is we nowhere near each other. I'll put it like that. We both in Michigan, but where she at and where I'm at ain't nowhere near each other. So that's the only reason I never reached out to her for that. Excited to pick her brain and learn a little bit about her life and her journey, and not just the things that she's done, but the things that God has planned in her life and that she's gonna do. So, without further ado, y'all welcome Alexandria to the show. What up,
Hello,
Alexandria? How you
hello,
doing?
hello. I am doing great. I'm doing great. But before we start, you said we are nowhere near each other. And I just want to point out that people from Detroit think that our ride from Flint to Detroit is so far. And it's just a hop across the pond. So we're gonna make it work because I'm in Detroit often and it's not far.
Okay. No, no. So let me clarify too, because you speak in
Yeah.
facts, but this is me being from Detroit and not actually living
You're not
nowhere near Detroit. You feel what I'm saying? So
There we go. I
um,
made an assumption.
that's
My bad.
that's what it is. But that don't mean we still can't make it work. So let's make it work. Cause
Okay.
I'm in Detroit a lot too. I'm in Detroit all
Okay.
the time. I don't live that far, but it's like, when people like you looking like, ooh, man, like all right, that's a hike. But we can make
Yeah.
it work. Welcome to the show.
Thank
You know what I'm saying?
you.
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm excited. My favorite things to talk about is faith and life and everything below the surface. And so I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation.
That's dope. How's your New Year off? Like, we still 1 month into the year. I don't know if you're a New Year resolution person, goals or whatever you do, but what's that looking like? How you feeling 1 month in?
I'm feeling like I need to catch up a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not much of a New Year's resolution person, but my birthday actually falls at the end of the year, December 22nd. So at the end of every year, I'm always like reflecting a lot about the year before and kind of what I want to do moving forward. And so I this year is just a lot of transition. It's a lot of ambiguity. And so really I'm just trying to kind of find my way into newness, without really seeing a lot. And so just trying to take the vision that I have and the things that I want to do and start kind of step by step building into what's going to happen in the future. So there's a lot of things happening, and it's a busy time, but I'm just trying to sort everything kind of.
That's a real place. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like so many times these days we all feel this pressure to like have it all figured out and maybe like present ourselves as having it all figured out. So I kind of love that you just like, yo, like this is about newness and I'm figuring some things out. I started writing this song this week called Faye,
Mhm.
FAI, which is a variation of like me, a play on words of faith. And
Okay.
like the whole point of the song is that I'm figuring things out. Everything isn't clear yet. So it's like this journey of faith. So that like when you said that, it's kind of dope to hear
Yeah.
just kind of where you are. What is like, is it anything specific that you could share that's like something new? Like you said, there was newness, ambiguity. Like, what does that look like for you specifically right now?
Okay. So it starts really at last year. So I'm about 2 days away from the anniversary of my mother passing away. And my mother
Sorry to hear
passed
that.
away. Thank you, thank you. It was unexpected. It was difficult. It was traumatic. It was a lot of things. And so I started off the year with a lot of grief with that, grief with my roles changing. I work with youth a lot, and I had a daughter that had but been a mentor that became a daughter, and so transition there and with relationships and kind of just some things changing there, business changing, life changing. And so last year was really just like trying to figure out how to make my way through grief and all of these other things that are happening at the same time. And when my mother passed away, before, like, the Lord had been talking to me about to everything there's a season. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, the Lord's telling me things are going to change. We were in the midst of some difficulty, and there's things that I have been waiting on the Lord to do for like a few years and maybe even a decade. And I'm like, okay, the Lord's saying that these things are happening. But right at the tail end of me thinking I'm going into newness and it's going to be kind of all this good, it really came at the beginning of a lot of devastation. And so it was hard to go from being very excited and very like looking forward to all of these things and then feeling like, man, I'm back at the bottom. And I want to be excited because I know you're still saying that these things are going to happen, Lord, but like my heart's devastated. Life is completely changed. My dad, my brother, like we're just trying to figure everything out, or at least trying to submit to God's sovereignty and what has happened, while also trying to figure our own hearts out and stuff. And so my year was really a lot of that. And so coming into this year, it's like, okay, well, I have a business. My youth program's running. I'm trying to pivot my business into something else. I'm still trying to deal with the emotional, I don't want to call it fallout, but just the emotional and kind of spiritual grappling that comes with the things that I've experienced the year before. And so um it's really just a continuation of the year, right? Of just learning how to, when things are shaken and when things are outside of our control, how do we then kind of find our stability? Like, and so I did too much talking that I don't remember the initial question, but that's kind of like the context of like the craziness, and like I don't know what's happening. Relationships are changing, my roles are changing, and I'm trying to figure out how to leave everything behind and become something new, to walk into the newness, while also trying to hold on to what was a little bit. And so it's like you said, you have no idea. Like you try to control or you try to make sense of it, but when it's happening, you're really learning that you kind of have to learn how to let go of all of the old stuff to let something become new. And that's just not comfortable. That's not comfortable.
No.
It's unpredictable. It's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard.
No, well, sorry to hear about your mom for sure. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for sharing that. Like,
Thank you.
that's real though. You know what I mean? And I can understand, like, I can understand generally speaking, like, just this idea of like, walking into newness sometimes, like, not all change is because everything was good. And so,
Yeah.
like, how have you though? It sounds like you and your family have still, like, you're leaning on the Lord through this time. How has your relationship with the Lord been affected or challenged,
Mm.
kind of as you go throughout this process?
Deeply. um, I think before I talk more about that, the I think what I enjoy about myself and what I appreciate is a lot of times I can see what the end thing is supposed to produce. So I have no power over my mother passing away and all of these things, but I understand that if I can endure long enough, or if I can try to find my way through at the end, I'll be able to comfort somebody else, or I'll be able to know the Lord in a new way, or I'll be able to the crushing will bring a greater anointing or a greater opportunity. Like I know that nothing is lost in the Lord, but at the same time, I had never had anybody close to me pass away, and my mother was the closest person to me. My
Yeah.
mother could call me and be like, "Hey, girl," and I'd be like, "What's wrong?" Not because there was anything that would indicate it. She was like, "What you talking about?" And I'd be like, What's wrong?" She's like, "I didn't even change my voice," and then she would go to be like, "Oh, well, you maybe I'm feeling down," or and so like me and my mother were close, and we were close because we were friends. We were close because my mom discipled me and my gifts. My mother was probably one of the people who I know the most, who just spent a lot of time with the Lord and waited on the Lord and lived her life just uncompromising for the Lord. She had a strong personality, but she had strong gifts. And so I was able to watch my mother, like the Lord would tell my mother something she may, if she could, she'd share it with me, and then we'd wait to see if it happened. She was like, "We need to see if this is me or the Lord." And my mother just never missed, not because she was perfect, but because when people are that close and consistent with the Lord, you get to see that. And so having lost my friend, my comforter, my counselor, all those things in one person. My parents are pastors, and I minister at my parents' church too. Is like there's that big shift. And so initially when this happened, I was like, Lord, what is going on? Like how, like I was just shell shocked, right? I still feel very much so like eclipsed. That's the only way that I could explain. It's like immediately life is different, and the permanence of this is not just that I can see the end goal, but it's like now I have to learn how to live with something that is never going to change. And so
Yeah.
my the year's been tough emotionally. Like I felt in a lot of kind of torment mentally and stuff with a lot of things, like trying to go to the Lord about stuff and trying to wait on the Lord for answers. And I asked the Lord anything. I'd be like, "Why is this happening?" Like I was like, "Lord, you don't lie. So how come we're
Mm.
having these conversations about, you know, the Lord is bringing us into this?" I was feeling like the Lord was going to do some healing in some areas, like in our family, or just like bringing us to a different level, just in our relationships and communication with each other. I said, "But how at the beginning of all of this happens?" And so trying to trace God's footprints and fingerprints on things was hard. And it's still hard, but I had thoughts that I had never had before. I was like, "Y'all, we in the Matrix." I was like, this is a simulation." And I was like, I go from being so sure to feeling like I'm not so sure. And so I questioned a lot of things, but I took my questions to the Lord, and I still don't have a lot of answers. And I still feel periods of doubt or periods of just confusion. But I've also seen too much to be like, "Nah, this ain't real." Like you see people healed, you see guys handling your life in very tangible ways. And it's just, you can't go back, but now you're trying to figure out how to move forward. And for me, it's been surrender. Like grief is really about surrender. Like, okay, I might not have all the answers. This sucks. This is uncomfortable constantly. I have to continue to surrender. I have to learn how to wait on the Lord. And I don't think people want to talk about that as much, right? Like that even in the most difficult times of your life, God can be using it to prune you, or to bring you to like to or to bring you
Yeah.
into deeper consecration. And I'm tired. Emotionally, I'm tired. I don't want to consecrate, or I don't want to, and so it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of, this is how I feel, this is what I see the end goal is, but I'm too tired. Or hey, maybe just coming to you and talking is enough, Lord. Or it's really trying to figure out how to place myself and evaluate myself in my relationship with the Lord. What is he asking of me? What does obedience look like? What does healing look like? What does grief look like? What does the fear of the Lord look like, while also trying to grapple with God? Like, because I'm wrestling with God, but God ain't wrestling with me.
I like that.
So,
Yeah.
so
Wow. No,
yeah.
that's powerful. That there's so much in what you said, and especially in the fact of like what I love is that I can see the impact that your mom had on you, and like sometimes we don't understand like what legacy is, and like that impact and how powerful someone's example can be, like that godly example. So no, I thank God for her in that sense, and thank God for you, just being vulnerable enough to share something that personal. Um,
Yeah.
you also kind of talked a little bit about, um, you mentioned that you took on, if I heard you right, a mentee and became like a mother. I
Yeah.
want to say you said that, and this
Yeah,
happened
I did.
around the same time. Do you mind sharing a little bit just about that dynamic of kind of now it seems like you're maybe in that role, in that mother role,
Mhm.
and kind of how you're approaching that during this time of change.
So it actually goes back a little bit further. So she's 20 now. I used to be a part of a youth program. Working with young people is what I definitely feel called to. And During that time, as I was exiting that youth program, she had started coming to church with us and doing a lot of things. And eventually kind of became a part of our family. Like I heard in prayer one day, like the Lord was saying, like, hey, she's gonna come live with you. And I was like, I'm still living with my parents because I've just started my business full time and there's things going on. I'm like, what is like I knew that the Lord was going to bring young people to me to help be a mentor and be a support to them. I didn't think that the Lord was going to do that while I was single, because why would the Lord willingly give me a whole child when, there's benefit to having that balance, right? But I was living with my parents. And so I didn't say anything. And a few months later, some situations happened, and she ended up coming to live with us and stay with us. And I became a full time parent. I went from a mentor role, to kind of this parent role of a teenager with her own history, with her own upbringing, with her own challenges. And It was up until my mother passed away. I explained it as being the most sanctifying thing that I've ever done, because when you're a person that's used to helping people, like, you're used to being a voice of reason and trying to talk and walk with people through stuff. But it's different when you're with someone all the time, right? Like you're married, people are married, people have children. The dynamic shifts some. Your love and your desire to help and support people doesn't change. But then you realize, like, okay, like there has to be a little bit more accountability because you're in my space and I'm in your space, or you can't
Yeah,
really hide from the things that you are doing. That's me as an adult, her as a child, my parents. And so it was the most beautifully challenging thing I've ever done. And I think the biggest thing is that for her, it's like the Lord shows you something different to give you an opportunity to make some different decisions, and hopefully that those seeds planted begin to sprout up in your life either soon or later. And for me, it's I'm called to young people, and so the Lord is using this to sanctify me and to strengthen me and to give me the tools and the things I need also as I go out, and he sends more people to me to do the work that I have to do. And a lot of that also informs my youth program, because young people in social media is such a large thing. I got to live firsthand what it looks like, with the young person and the influences that social media has, how people interact with it, how they interact with it, how it hurts them, how it helps them. And so those things, it was a challenge because everybody also deals with grief differently. So she lost a grandmother when my mother passed away, but everybody's coping mechanisms are different. And like I said, it came on the heels of a very challenging year prior. And she's becoming a young adult. So you 19, 20, you want to be out here. You trying to figure it out. You trying to figure yourself
yeah,
out. And so it's just it's challenging. I felt like last year I also grieved, that relationship in that sense. But I mean, when I went to college, my mom grieved me going to college. So, it's just a
for
transition
sure.
of everything.
Got it. No, I mean, look, those are some impactful relationships, right? And I guess I'm curious, how did you, like you mentioned, being a person that kind of helps people and people come to you? Where did that come from? Like, where did that desire? How did you find your way to understanding that part of your purpose? Because it
Mhm.
seems super clear.
Yeah. So I think part of it's calling and part of it's God using some hurt for his glory. I think
Yeah,
I've always been a very like disciplined and focused person. I've always been a very kind and like empathetic person. I think that some of the giftings that the Lord had, like, you just people talk and you understand what's going on, even though they're not talking about what's going on. And so for me, I think that there's some things that the Lord placed in me where it was just like that was a part of it. But then also when I was young, I remember being hurt by a friend unintentionally, but I felt kind of rejected and abandoned by her. And I remember as a kid saying, You 8 years old. I don't want anybody to ever feel like I felt. And I think for a long time that distracted me from kind of the deep focus I used to have. It made me very like, I want to make sure that nobody's left out. I want to make sure that everybody is taken care of. And so, um, with the leading of my mom often like, girl, you got to have some wisdom in your compassion and things like that. But it's been really difficult over the years for me to kind of separate those things. And so I think that my heart to want to help people and for people to have a space and a place came kind of out of that. And just growing up and having my mom and having really, really dope people behind me, like supporting me, loving me, encouraging me, telling me about myself. um,
Mhm.
I think bringing those things together just kind of made it always really clear to me that I just want to be able to help people. Like for me, it's very fulfilling to help people. But in my adulthood, and especially in this last year, it's been the Lord like reminding me like you can help people and there's some training and preparation, but then there's time to execute and you have to lock in and allow people to be where they're at or allow people to make the decisions that they make. And you can't fix it. You're not Jesus, you're not the Holy Spirit. You can't come in and fix. And so I've also been learning how to pull back a lot so that I can make sure that I'm getting done the things that I need to get done, so that I can impact the way that the Lord wants me to, and not just based off emotion, right?
Yeah. Have you found that to be difficult, like when it's time for you to pull back and not help someone? Because it seems like that probably comes naturally for you.
Yeah,
Has that been difficult? Have you had some trial and error with that of like knowing when to do it, when not? Like, how's that process been?
absolutely. I think I'm much better than what I was. I think that this year has taught me that I don't have no time to waste. I don't have time to waste, and I think that what has informed me maybe staying around longer or having a hard time tearing away is it's kind of like that people need support even if they don't think they need support. That they need it. And I think because i'm I'm a gap filler. Like in high school I played sports that I'd play point. I wouldn't be a shooting guard. I'd have no jump shot, but I might be point. I'd be a small forward. I'd be over here.
Right.
I played volleyball. I was a outside hitter. That they put me in setting. In track, I'm doing this. Like in work, as I'm working jobs, they're placing me in a lot of different places. I think that when your skill set can be used broadly, you get used to being used broadly, and the difficulty sometimes is realizing that even though you can do a lot of things well or a lot of things great, even that there's time and place for you to only do single things at the greatest level. And so I have struggled with that. I've struggled because you don't want to be mean to people, but or feeling like, man, if I stick around long enough, I can help. I can be there when you do fall because everybody's gonna fall. But the Lord just basically told me, like, listen, if you put yourself at the center of everybody's help, then that's making yourself idle. You're making your ability to help people um, more effective than the Holy Spirit doing His work in them in their timing. And so it's not as hard as it used to be, but emotionally you still grapple. But decision wise, I make the decision like, hey, I can't do that. But internally you be like, ugh. But
Yeah.
after a while, that'll die down.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like, the whole, my purpose being to inspire God's people.
Yeah,
And not that I'm always executing that perfectly, right? But when you are a person that's centered on helping other people, I think sometimes what happens is every person only sees what they bring to you. So it
yeah,
feels like to them, like, oh yeah, you just dealing with one thing. And it's like, nah, I'm actually got six of y'all coming to me about stuff, and then
yeah,
I'm also human and I'm not perfect and I'm dealing with things. And I think, I love that you kind of share some things vulnerably, because I think what gets missed sometimes is that when you're a person that may be mature, or maybe, maybe
yeah,
the community around you consider you wise and things like that, and they come to you for stuff, people also tend to put you on a pedestal. And it's
yeah,
something that I am always fighting against, people putting me on a pedestal, because I'm like, like I'm human. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm
yeah,
not God. So you have to understand that, like, just like you have struggles, I have struggles too. And it's funny because I was thinking this morning about Solomon randomly and just some of the mistakes he made. And it was like I just had this random thought of like, it's crazy how wisdom doesn't exempt you from sin. Like, you being wise doesn't exempt you from doubt, losing faith, struggle, anything that everyone else goes through. So I think that's part of the importance too of like sometimes as a person that's always giving of yourself, being able to say no so that you get replenished and that
Yeah,
you're not like an empty vessel just pouring out nothing because it's like you haven't been replenished. And so I think that's important. So I appreciate you sharing
I
that.
agree. I agree.
But
Because you rid yourself of rest. It's like the one of the last podcasts you did where you guys were talking about rest and how important that is and how rest is a gift and how if we choose not to rest, we're also in a sense being disobedient or just kind of slapping God in the face. Because why do we think that we can accomplish more when God is saying if you rest in me, you'll so that's been a very
right.
big like piece for me this year too, right? Like no, God's asking you to rest. God is telling you not to worry about everybody else and lock in. And I don't think I did that well last year. Like I knew that that's what the Lord told me. And I don't think I did it well at all. I'm like, my mom died. I want my family to, we got to move together as a unit. We got to, and I'm running here. I'm doing this emotionally. I'm doing a lot of stuff to try to behind the scenes. And God's like, that's not what I asked you to do. I'm like, but I'm trying to like, and then you just realize you're spent emotionally, physically, and people don't understand. And even when they try to understand, but we have to rest. God can do
Yeah,
more
we
with our
do.
rest.
Yeah, and that's how you get replenished so you could keep
Yeah.
going, right? It's like I think about race car drivers and they go on a long race with however many laps for however many hours. They got to stop and get tires changed. They got to stop and get gas. All type of things you got to go into a pit stop, and if you don't make
Yeah.
that pit stop, you end up dying out. Your car breaks down before you can even finish the race. And so I think
Yeah.
a lot of times for us, we have to understand. I've been there plenty of times. Like, trust
Me
me,
too.
like I can relate where it's like, bruh, like I gotta chill. I gotta go through a season of being
Yeah.
quiet and just listening, a season of just reading my word and not, trying to give everybody advice. It was
Yeah.
funny, and I don't know if it was 21 or 22, but the word God gave me in that year was take your own advice. So I spent most of that year trying my
Oh.
best not to give people advice and
Yeah.
like trying not to tell, because you notice things when you're a person that like God uses in that way. You're just a noticer. Some people think you're
Yeah.
being you criticizing. It's not. You're observant and you just notice like,
Yep.
oh, hey, that's off to the side.
Right.
Fix that. And that
Mm-hmm.
year, God
Mm-hmm.
was just like, no, I'll take your own advice. So I spent most of that year like, all right, not telling nobody to get
Yeesh.
their stuff together. I'm gonna listen to that. So and I see everybody in the comments. Appreciate y'all. Gerardo, what up? What up? Gerard says, hey, Dawn. How y'all doing, man? Much
Gerard.
love. That's my
Lou.
guy right
Sorry.
there.
I love Gerard.
Yeah, Gerard is so dope.
Hey,
So appreciate y'all. Um, I've been knowing him so long. Like Gerard is one of the first people. I tell him all the time. He one of the first people that I know that like we used to travel together, and when we traveled
hmm
doing music, we was in a hotel one day, and like I woke up. Let's say it's like 7 in the morning. You like get up. I'm
Yeah.
looking like Gerard is like in the corner the
Yes.
shade reading the Bible. I'm like, oh, people. And we were young at the time. He's a little older than me. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
young. Not to throw it out there, Gerard. I ain't playing you. You still a young man, Bishop. But at the time, I'm like, oh, we really about this life. Like you up at six
Yeah.
in the morning, like my mom's really reading the word. So
Yes.
Gerard is solid. Love him. But Alexandria, I'm curious about like so as we think about like content creation and some of the things you're doing, you talked about your youth program. So let's actually go
Yeah.
there first. The young
Okay.
influencers. I mean, it makes sense to me just hearing you talk. I can
Yeah.
see how you would do that. But tell us a little bit about the young influencers. What led you
Yeah.
here? What's the vision and things like that?
Mhm. So the idea actually came about 4 or 5 years ago. I was at the table with my mom and my best friend, who's also from Detroit, Shantae, and we were just talking about because she's a teacher. So we were talking about just the different things that young people are going through and how different it is from our generations and kind of the struggle in that and how it was forming their mindsets and their identities and things like that and just the things that they had access to. And in that conversation I was like, how come people aren't like, we see all this content creation and all of this stuff for business owners and adults and things like that. I was like, how come people aren't doing this for young people? Like they're already on their phones all the time. Like, why aren't we trying to repurpose this in a way? So I did some research. I didn't find a lot. I remember back in in college, I wanted to write a research paper on Facebook and how Facebook impacted people's self-esteem. But at the time I couldn't do it because there was no research. It's like 2007 and there was no research. My teacher was like, yeah, you can't, my professor was like, you can't do that. And I was like, but we see that this is like causing some stuff. Like, but I understand I can't do a research paper when there's no research. But now we fast forward however many years that is, 16 years or whatever, and there's tons of research. And so when we were sitting at that table, I just I literally 2 days just sat down and wrote a really large vision for a program and curriculum and then like a nonprofit and all these things. And then I kind of started to try to get that in motion. I piloted the program at my old church in college when I was in Grand Rapids, Grace for the Nation Church. Shout out to Nate and Camp Judah. And I got to spend 2 weeks kind of teaching young people about content creation, mostly YouTube, because the young people wanted to be YouTubers really bad and the older people wanted to be influencers. But and then tried to kind of get it off the ground, but I was just going into business full time by myself. I have just became a full-time parent to my daughter. I was trying, the COVID hit in the middle of all of this, and it just kind of got tabled. And so at the end of last year, I won a pitch competition for this and I ended up landing in some schools this year. And so it's evolved into, we're teaching kids the business and the technical side of content creation, but we're really using it as a vehicle to talk about mental health, to talk about online, like responsibility and duty online, and to really try to help. Social media is not going anywhere, so to really try to shape that, hey, you need to see this as a tool, not as something that's consuming you, but you need to go from kind of being a consumer to being a contributor. You need to understand that the way that the world is going is gig employment is going through the roof, and you're going to have to really know how to work this thing, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or whether you work for someone's business. Like, social media is a large aspect of business and life at this point. And so really wanting to redirect young people who have a lot of access and don't have a lot of guidelines, don't have a lot of boundaries, because those things impact your mind. Like, kids are watching pornographic things online. Like, kids are on their tablets watching kid stuff, and parents have to monitor that to figure out what they're seeing, because people are putting all kind of stuff on there, right? Just because we know that we can plant seeds of influence in ways that sprout later. So it's really about that. Like, it's really about helping young people see it as a tool and being able to learn how to develop their own voice, how to contribute what's unique to them to the world in a way that's purposeful, but also protecting of themselves. Like, they need to understand that they're not a brand, you're a person. And you also need to understand that getting millions of followers and a whole bunch of money is not going to solve your problems. But if you're going to aim for this and shoot for it, then you also need to understand that there's a skill set behind this, and that this is work, and that there's strategy, and that there's things that that can help you. And that's what we've been doing in the program this year. And it's been great. It's been exciting.
I love that. I love that. Thank y'all for the love in the comments. People are enjoying. Gerardo says he's proud of both of us. Thank you, brother. What I love about what you're doing with this program is that, look, you like you said, you've looked into the research and understand, like, the research around what social media does, not even just to young people, right? To everyone. Like, I've watched so many people, in my age group, like, start falling a victim to stuff, and it's easy to fall in that trap. But what I like about what you're doing is that sometimes we spend a lot of time telling people what not to do versus trying to train and educate them on how to do it. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's like to kind of go from being a consumer to a contributor. It's super important because as a consumer on social media, to me, it's insane. Like, you are just waking up every morning, like, just like inputting information, just upload, like, and it's hard to keep up emotionally with everything. Even me as an adult, I'm like, I know these kids got to be tripping, because I have times where I just step away from social media for a month or two because I'm like, there is no way possible for me to consume all of this information, emotion, anger, tragedy, conflict. It's like, it's
all
too much. I got to live my life within 20 seconds, right? And so what I love about what you're saying is, like, let's guide these young people on actually how to use this, because, like you said, from a career perspective, and just in their lives, it's gonna play a much different role than it did in our lives. And obviously it's playing a role in our lives moving forward. But I'm such a fan of that kind of mindset. So You
Yeah.
sounds like you got into some schools now. Is that kind of the plan to continue to
Yeah.
build out and get in more schools?
Yeah, I want to link with organizations and schools that have, they already have the audience, right? Definitely going to do some standalone things where we're doing some training for specifically for like youth who either own businesses or are looking to be entrepreneurs and things like that so that we can, there's we want to expose as many kids to the concepts as possible, but then for the people who are like because young some people are decided that, hey, I have this business or I have these ideas. We want to be able to pour into also the people who are high achieving and want to actually do something with it. So there's exposure, and then there's strengthening the people who want to take this and run with it too. So I definitely have a long-term goal to take the curriculum and parse it out in some different ways and sell it and do some different things, because me and a team of people can't be everywhere. But I think that when I look at broadly like how much deception and confusion and how much like our young people are tied up in social media in a way that has them kind of blinded, I think that it's important that how we're going about this and how we're going to structure it can be multiplied, and you have to be willing to kind of put things out there for it to be multiplied. So I definitely have a goal to do that as well, because
No, I love that. No, go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry. I didn't.
oh no, that's basically it. I was going
Okay.
to throw a statistic out there. The Surgeon General came out with a report last year on adolescence and social media, and they said they gave two statistics that were really startling, but then the kind of summation of the report was crazy. So 90% of teenagers 13 to 17 are on social media right now. You're supposed to be able to be 13 to get onto these platforms, but 40% of 8 to 12-year-olds are already on social media. So when you look at the vast amount of kids who are interacting with this, at the end of the report, it said a lot of good things. It said some of the benefits of it, it said some of the negatives, but it said that we cannot say that social media is necessarily safe for people. Like basically, through our research, we can't give out a statement. And so that alone is very jarring,
Oh.
right? Like there's all this research and these things that are happening. So how are we going to meet kids where they are to help them move through this stuff? And so that's kind of like some of the statistical things behind it that makes it important too, because we see it's all consuming, but those numbers say something even crazier to me.
Yeah, especially the 40% of 8 to 12 that are on there, and you're supposed to be 13 to get there. And I've seen that. Like
Yeah.
I've seen that with my own eyes, seeing young kids on there. And I'll tell you, like a lot of times, me and my wife kick it, and we don't have children, so I don't want
Mhm.
to. I'm not here to tell people what to do with their kids as
Right.
somebody who doesn't have children. Just as an observer, though, what's interesting to me, and then thinking about being a kid myself
Yeah.
growing up, I'm like, there's no way possible. I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about nobody else. There is no way possible you could have grabbed me even at 13. What's that, like seventh grade or something? Eighth
Mhm.
grade, whatever it is. I think that's seventh grade. You couldn't have caught me in seventh grade and brought me this device and was like, hey, whatever you type in here, it'll pop up. And then trust me with it. Like, I'm just telling you, like, if you trust me with that at 13, you out of your
Man,
mind. And so I think what happens, because you mentioned it, you like kids are watching pornographic things. A lot of what
yeah,
happens, I think, is that parents are blind to the reality of their own children. Like everyone is
yes.
almost conditioned to see their own child as like, he's just a sweet angel. Isn't
Mhm.
she loving and caring? And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I remember being in elementary, kids was cussing in kindergarten. Like,
Right.
so you have to see your kids through the lens of reality and understand
Very much so.
you can't just trust them with something so powerful, a portal into any realm that they want to enter. That's literally what social media is. You can go in these search
Mm,
too, like it's too much for some of us adults.
anything
Let's
you
be
want.
real.
Oh, for we weren't
It's
built for this. We weren't built for everybody's opinion. We weren't built for all this information like this. We weren't
it's
built
too
for,
much.
for
It's
that.
too much. And even, even for me, like I constantly have to try to guard myself and revise my plan and like, all right, like because and the reason is because you said it. All these opinions, all these perspectives, everyone is an expert. They never share their experience though. And again, you give this to adults and we lose our minds. You're raising children in this. It's a very dangerous thing.
Undeveloped
So again,
brains,
oh my
undeveloped
gosh.
identity.
and you're just shaping them.
And it's like what you said about being a parent. You're like, I don't want to necessarily tell parents what to do and stuff. And a part of what we want to do is later on down the line educate parents, because when I was coming into, being a parent to my teenager, it was like I had to take your phone sometimes. I had to take social media. You probably thought it was really whack and you was the only one that had some restrictions at 16, 17. But if things, someone has to give the boundaries, right? Like, if parents are doing everything that they want to on their phones and on their phones constantly, it's really hard to hold a kid accountable not to do those things. Why? Because are you leading by example, or are you just telling me not to do something? And so, like, we're all wrapped up in this, but like for young people, we're like, this generation doesn't know what life is outside of blue lights and always having a tablet. Like, we had the TV and we had things that still stimulated us. I don't want to act like we went from nothing to something, but
Right.
our young people don't know what stillness in their mind is. We played outside, we did different things, like, like, everything is instant. Gratification is instant. Embarrassment is instant. Whatever you want to do is instant, and there's no sense of like boundary. So how then, as a young person, if your mind is always doing this, and you've taken in 1,000 videos in a day, you've read sad stuff or you've read happy stuff, you come over here, you read 12, listen to 12 mindset videos. How do you place yourself in that when your parents either don't realize that they need to help you navigate this, or they don't want to, or there's other factors like, poverty or abuse or different things that pile all of this stuff on top of each other. When we work with our students, I found that they're very money motivated.
Mm.
Scamming, all these things is on the rise. It's like the things that are motivating them. We're 30. We're like, I'm gonna get me a, when I get a big girl job, I'm gonna get me a Benz. We thinking like, when I'm
Right.
30, I'm gonna get me a house. These kids are 14, 12, 13, 14. They want designer, Montclair. I don't even know what half this stuff is. Oh,
You and me
they want
both.
all of that stuff at this young age. Like, they want, at 16, I want a scat. It's like there's no concept of like the things that you're seeing at a young age come later on or come with a certain amount of work. And it's because you just get fed all of this stuff so much that, and that's not everybody, because some people have boundaries and guidelines and parents that are able to pour into them, but it still is affecting the mindset, of everything,
Yeah.
relationships, how you see yourself, what you want to buy, how you spend money, how you trying to present to the world. It's all consuming.
And it's
What this
and
kid
look
gonna do in 20 years?
and man, and it's scary because if we being real about it, not only is it all consuming, it's challenging to fight. So again,
Yeah.
I'm talking like as an adult, and I think part of the issue is, and as you kind of alluded to it, is that the parents themselves are trapped in the loop as well. So what's happening
Absolutely.
is
We all are.
these children are left to navigate this world themselves because they're seeing their mom and dad trapped in the same thing, like trying to impress, trying to find their identity the same
Yeah.
way. My thing is, again, I try to be real about it. Even when I think about like this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I know, I work in sales and marketing. My degree is in marketing. I
Mhm.
view marketing as mind control, as a form of mind control. So I
It
understand the
is.
good and the bad of marketing. And one of the biggest challenges when you are out here trying to create content responsibly is like, all right, I know the kind of shows and topics I could do that would just have this show on fire. I know the type
Mm-hmm.
of things that you could show people that will make
Yep.
people react a certain way. But my beliefs, my standards, my morals, I have to look them in and face them every day and say, what is inspire God's people? What do you
Yeah.
want it to be? And my goal is, I always say, I would rather reach 100 people deeply than 1 million people on the surface. And so that
Agreed.
is
Agreed.
what I try to remind myself of daily so that I don't fall into the loop of the likes, the comment. And again, I
Yeah.
appreciate, this is not to say I appreciate the people who genuinely consume this content, but I don't want to start catering content to what everybody likes, because the reality is people love the surface these days. Nobody
Oh,
wants
they
to
love
go
the
beyond
surface.
15 seconds, right? So,
Yeah.
how do you as a content creator though, like, how do you manage that? How do you navigate as a creator,
Mm.
as a person that's putting content out into the world? through your photography, through your programs, or
Mhm.
whatever else it may be. Like, how do you kind of think through all those things?
So I'll be honest, I wouldn't even consider myself a content creator. I would consider myself as someone in multimedia that has the skills to be able to teach people how to be a content creator, right? And so I
Got
say
it.
that because I don't do stuff online. My personal page is private. Because I used to be in education and I would tell my students, y'all can't follow me. They were college students and stuff. I was like, y'all can't follow me. My life is private. I ain't doing nothing crazy, but y'all still can't follow me. And so then I
Right.
have my business pages, and to be honest, I'm teaching people things, but I need to do better at it. I'm not consistent online. So I think, but I think I agree with you is that when I do show up, I'm showing up as myself, however
Yeah.
quirky or different or crazy that is, I think that I don't have a desire to not be who I am. If people don't like me how I am, or people can't accept me how I am, then those just aren't my people,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't think that I'm that great at that. But as a creator, I think I anything I do, I want to do it well. I want to try to do it to the best of my ability. I want to try to do it with the right heart. I want to try to do it with the right mindset. Integrity is of the utmost importance to me. And so I think that that's kind of the quick the quick approach to it.
Yeah, no, but you said something important, and you play an important role as someone who is not necessarily creating the content, but you're
Yeah.
educating young people on the content. So that's where that perspective is super important, to because you have an opportunity to give them wisdom and guide them,
Yeah.
right? And that's what this show is about, guiding people to their
Yeah.
purpose. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so many young people right now are navigating and traveling through life without a guide, where they have
Yes.
these guides that are, um, you know, pointing them in the wrong direction. You talked about like designer
Yeah.
clothes and all this unrealistic stuff that is like, I deal a lot with poverty just because this is a faith and
Yeah.
business show. And I'm like always trying to tell people like real rich people don't act like this. and,
They
and it's
don't.
a they
They
do
don't.
not they don't I'm around people with money all the time. Like people don't act,
They don't.
when you're in business and you're, I deal with C-suite people and organizations, and
Hmm.
the conversations that you're having when you're out at dinner and things like that is about people
Yeah.
going to Lake Tahoe or the mountain they climbed or whatever. It's not about they went and spent $600 on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's robbing you of life experiences. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting, man. Some of these things. Can we talk
Yeah.
before we get out of here? I want to talk a little bit about your photography.
Okay.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm curious where maybe the desire to get into
Mhm.
photography, and what fulfillment you get out of that business. So kind of the
Mhm.
journey into it, and then like what it's
Yeah.
like being a photographer for you.
Yep. So I fell into photography. Like I said, my background is in education. I worked in higher ed for a few years. As a student, I did like as a parapro doing like orientation, RA, all that stuff, and then end up pursuing that in grad school, and then working in higher ed for 3 years, doing student development and being a community director and things like that. And so photography happened because I worked at an art school. I worked at the Savannah College of Art and Design as a residence director. And one of the things I had said in undergrad was when I get a big girl job, I'm gonna go buy a big girl camera. I'm gonna get a real camera. Again, me at 18 asking for a camera, and then people, some of our young people now at 18 ready to be on a yacht. The mentality was a little bit different, and people
Way
wanted stuff. We
different.
wanted stuff that we couldn't afford and stuff back then too. But so I was at this school, and one of our students helped me find a camera. He was a photography major, and I started to do it as stress relief. And then I realized when I looked back at my life, I always had my point and shoot in college. I was taking, the disposable cameras at the end of the school year. Like I actually enjoyed that. I feel like I'm a split in half of a very technical kind of brain and a creative brain. Like I don't fall all the way over to one side. And so I started doing it for fun. And then, of course, you do it for fun, and people ask you to do it. Like, "Hey, you want to come shoot my wedding?" You do not want that. But thank you for thinking. So, so
Right,
I
right.
had a coworker and an old college friend asked me to do some work for them. One was a wedding. But from there, I was like, oh, I can kind of do this on the side. I enjoy it. And fast forward to I leave Detroit. I ended up going to Detroit for a couple years, working at Wayne State, and then I moved back to Flint because I was burnt out. I was like, I'll come home for 6 months, figure out what I'm going to do, live off my savings for a little bit, and then kind of get back out there. Because I felt like I was far away from my desire and goal to do work with young people or in youth or work in trio programs or just I had a very specific, like, I know I'm called to work with young people. You know, the older I get, it's always going to be more working with young people. But it didn't work out. So I went home, got a job, ended up getting a job as a case manager. And I got to work with young people, but then I got laid off and I was just tired. I was like, I'm tired of working for people who don't really care about young people or who don't have the ability to bring a vision to life. They wanted me to do some stuff to bolster like their youth program, but they wouldn't really let me do the stuff. And it's because it was grant funded and they wanted to hit certain metrics. But I'm like, we can hit metrics and we can impact lives. But it was just that tussle. So once I got laid off, I was like, I'm tired. So decided to go into business for myself full time. And at the time, the purpose was going to funnel a portion of that money to youth stuff. And I did that for a while, but it didn't quite work out. And then I just stayed doing photography. And it's kind of bloomed and blossomed into all of this. So I'm self-taught. Went to a conference in Detroit, met some great mentors and a great group of people that helped me grow. And here we are. I don't know that it's almost 10 years now, 7, 8, 9 years or something later. And
Wow.
I found that God doesn't waste anything. Like, it's literally been this great blend of what I'm called to in ministry, what I've learned as an educator, and what I've learned administratively running programs, to being a creative, and also my life experience as a parent. And so the young influencers thing is really a combination of that, and photography is really a vehicle. It was never like, I really love this. Like, people often are like, oh, you're so passionate about photography. And I'm like, photography is not my passion. And they're kind of confused, like, well, why are you
Hmm.
doing it? Like, or why? And I'm just like, I enjoy it, but my passion is young people. My passion is being a springboard and being a sounding board for young people. And so I do a lot of high school, like, senior photos, and I do business branding and headshots and stuff. But working with high school seniors is very meaningful because, it's an important time in their life for them and their parents. And so I'm able to I enjoy it, but it's all been leading up to kind of more of this other stuff. If I
I
didn't do
love
photography
how,
ever again in life, I'd be fine as long as I was out here helping these young people navigate life a little bit better.
but it's something dope in what you're saying though, and I love it, and I don't even know that you're saying it on purpose, but I think sometimes people they can't see how their purpose kind of applies to things that they don't necessarily like in life. So it's like, sometimes I'll be talking to young people that's, don't have a career yet and don't know what they want to do. And
Mhm.
they like, yeah, I'm looking for something I love or whatever. And I'm like, well, a lot of times what you love is wrapped inside and hidden in things you don't love, and
Ooh,
you find out like for me, inspiring God's people is my purpose. I've worked in
yeah,
corporate America for 17 years now and kind of worked my way up climbing the corporate ladder. But what I found is when I was younger in my career, I thought there was no purpose in what I was doing in corporate. Like, no, I
yeah,
want to go and do music. I want to do this creative stuff. And then what I ended up finding out was that working through corporate America gave me opportunities to have real leadership jobs. Because a lot of times we say things about ourselves. Like, I see a lot of people get on social media and they start talking as experts about things they haven't experienced. And it's like the idea of being a
yeah.
leader and being a leader is totally different. So God allowed me to be in
Ooh,
leadership
that's a bar.
roles. You feel me? Like, but God
That's a
allowed
bar.
me to be in these leadership roles in corporate America that then allowed me to apply the principles that I found in His Word. That when you talk about wanting to be a good leader, and then I started to be able to
Yeah,
exercise these things in real life. So now it's like this parallel path of being able to do things like this podcast where, and
yeah,
go speak places at churches or whatever it may be. But my job allows me real life daily in leadership to see if I'm to give me an opportunity to use the principles that I learned and try to, because my goal, I want to be a great leader. That's one of my
yeah.
goals. I want to be a great leader. And you can't just do that if you're not leading anything. So you talked about how photography isn't your passion, but
It's
young
not.
people are. But the dope thing is that photography puts you in the presence of young people. And so
It
to
does.
someone out there, I would tell them, like, do things, try
Hmm.
things, right? Be a
Everything.
contributor, right?
Yeah.
Because then you will end up figuring out like, oh, I thought the corporate didn't mean that. I thought God wanted me to just go this route in ministry and leave corporate alone. And then I realized I'm like, if I'm being real, the experiences I've gained from corporate, like local ministry would have never been able to provide me in a
Yeah.
real way, you know. And so doing both of those things balances some things out and gives us some perspective. So
Yeah.
I just love that you said that it's not your passion,
Mm.
but it puts you in that purpose
Exactly.
with young people that God called you to. So that's pretty dope.
And
Um,
that makes me
uh,
think about, can I add something to it?
yeah, for
It,
sure. Let's go ahead.
it makes me think about a couple people. It makes me think about Moses. God sent Moses to go and talk to Pharaoh. Moses said, I can't speak. Like
Like,
you, yeah, I'm not a public speaker. That's not me." And God was like, "Go." And then got mad and was like, well, let me take this. Okay, you can go with you. But like, this wasn't something Moses was confident in. It wasn't something that he was good at. And ultimately, he still had to choose to obey so that God could get the glory. But that was probably uncomfortable, full of fear, probably felt crazy, you know. And then you think about Daniel, though, who had great wisdom, great intellect, great talent. But they were in, they were in, I would say bondage, but
that,
they were captive. They were
yeah,
captive in a pagan society, or in a society different than their beliefs. And he was called to the highest places in government, and in these places, uncompromised. But are we able to withstand that kind of testing? Or Joseph having a vision in these dreams early, but having to be in jail, having to be accused of of
wrongly
rape and
accused.
all of these things. Like, I think that one thing that has preserved me, but it sometimes has made me feel like I'm missing out, is I've always had this ideal of delayed gratification. It's not about suffering and enduring just for the sake of suffering, but it's that in time things will happen. Like, I've seen God be God. So even though this has taken a year or 10 years or 12 years, like, I'm going to trust that it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen the way I want it, or as quickly as I want it, it's going to work something out in me. In college, God was like, look at some of your favorite worship leaders. How old are they? And I was like, oh, they're kind of in their 30s. Because I would be upset. I'm like, Lord, I know you called me to teach. I know you called me to do these things in the kingdom. How come you keep sitting me down? How come I see my friends doing this and doing that and doing that? Or I'm getting all these deep, heavy convictions about things. And my mom, my mom would tell me, she was like, in the beginning, she was like, it's gonna feel bad because the Lord is showing you things, or because you're choosing to follow what the voice of the Lord is saying. She said, but in the end, it's always going to work out to your benefit. It's always going to be better. And I think that I've been very unsatisfied in a lot of my jobs and in a lot of my work. I've been unsatisfied in photography sometimes, but I've endured long enough to see God let it all come together for something that's going to be deeply fulfilling. Not just because I need to be fulfilled, but because he used it all and I was able to wait, and he'll honor that and use it for his glory. Because someone told me earlier, or sometime last year, like, I can tell that you've been unfulfilled in some things. Somebody who don't know me, sometimes people come up to you, they prophetic, you be like, you look crazy. But
Right.
they were like, well, fulfillment is coming. And I was like, and I
That's
appreciated that, and I
hilarious.
hold on to that, because I'm like, most people think like, oh, you living your best life. You got a business, you this, you that. I see you here, you doing that by proximity. And I'm like, no, like, I've been doing this and enduring through this, trying to figure out growing in business and changing my mindset. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. My parents were entrepreneurs. My dad's had owned a business here in Flint for 25 plus years. My brother's an entrepreneur. Just look, just drop some sneakers. I'm throwing that out there.
Ooh, I saw that
Oh,
on your Instagram. Okay,
yeah, I
so
had
that's your
noticed, but
brother. He just designed
yeah.
those.
Yeah, he designed
Okay.
them in a collaborative project. He's creative. He has a business. I don't want to. I just wanted. I did not want to have a business. I want to be somebody's youth pastor, running around after their kids, helping to support parents and kids in that way. God shut that down every time. And I didn't. I'm like, marketplace. I was like, I don't want to be in the marketplace trying to do ministry. And here I am, 15 years later, submitted and surrendered, doing something
Yeah.
that I love in a way I had no idea that I wouldn't have chose it.
You know what though? Like you said some dope stuff. Like you preached the whole message. I don't even know if you really, really realize like you just preached. And I'm gonna tell you what really resonated with me is so I have it up on my phone. I've kept this up on my phone for the last week is the idea of a time horizon. So,
Mm.
full transparency, like when I was
Yeah.
originally looking at this definition and thinking through this, it was more around like investment and my investment
Yeah.
strategies over the past years or whatever. And one of the things you learn, and like I try to look at the word of God first and then
Yeah.
filter what I do in business, investing in
As we
those
all
things through the
should.
lens of that, right?
Yeah.
Versus just because otherwise you could just get caught up being money hungry, greedy,
Yeah.
opportunistic, and all those things. But what you talked about, that ability to have delayed gratification, right? So many of us struggle with that because we think what is today will always be. But I always
That's
tell people,
true.
like, if you go back to 1999 or let's go 2000. I'm just trying to go to the time before the internet and social media
Yeah.
really was what it is today, right? Um, there's a lot of people, almost anybody who was alive during that time and was 15 years old or whatever, let's say, they had the opportunity to purchase Apple stock, as an example. Like, it was there. Amazon stock was there. Netflix
Mm-hmm.
was there, right? But if I would have came up to you in 2000 and said, "Hey man, there's this Apple stock. This is gonna be something." In that moment, you would not, or Amazon. In that moment, you wouldn't have been able to even take me serious. You'd have been like, "What?" Because I'm too early, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're too early in seeing what God is going to do, and when you're early, you look crazy. You're like, "What you having
Very.
faith for that for? Like, what are you doing?" Like, because you're early. But then,
Yeah.
if you're just patient enough to give it enough time to go by, then everybody else starts jumping on board. And that's
Yeah.
actually from an investment standpoint when there is the greatest opportunity for gain
Yeah.
is once when you've been early and then people jump on. So for me, I look at that through the lens of a believer of like whatever God is doing in our lives today, like we have to have some type of understanding of how time works and understand that where you are
Ooh.
today is not where you'll always be. And sometimes we make life changing decisions based on today, as
Yeah.
if this good or bad is going to always be your life. And where it really helps us is for the good things, right? Things that are going good in my
Mhm.
life. It causes me to be grateful and understanding that there are some things that are going well that I don't want to take for granted that I think they're
Yeah.
just gonna I'm entitled to them going well. But
Yeah.
then things that I'm working through and challenged through is like, hey, it's not gonna always be this bad and keep going. So to me,
Yeah.
it's understanding that. And then the other part that you said that's really dope and it made me think about it's the fact that like some of us are so concerned about what everybody thinks we can't go through the rough patches of our lives. And this
Yes.
isn't important sometimes. The importance of turning your phone off, getting
Yeah.
off of social media and everything is
Yep.
because we don't allow each other to struggle. Because if people were seeing me struggle, they might judge me. They might, everything is funny to
Mm-hmm.
everybody now. I might be a meme, the butt of somebody's joke. And I think we
Mm-hmm.
live in a society where there's so much pressure for perfection that the people who are
Yes.
struggling, they're struggling silently. Because I don't want to tell nobody because like I got this many followers or we trying to live up to these
Man.
brands and things versus just being a person. So yeah, I got all
And
that
that's
from what
so
you said.
strange. Oh, well, man, but that's life, and I'm getting a lot from what you're saying because it's true. Like how have we created? The literal title is influencer. And so I'm like, even adults, we walk around like things don't influence us. We act like music don't influence us. What we desire, like people don't influence us. By nature, like if we're spiritual beings, like everything's gonna have some influence, whether you are aware of it or not, whether you perceive it or not. And so it's just like how are we turning into this society that's so front facing that we're saying that we're being authentic, but people really like they don't know how. And some of these people are doing stuff in content and stuff, and they're being authentic, but they don't know themselves. They're not established in their identity, or at least in the basis of like the base of their character. But it's I think that's it's crazy. I think that we are
No,
in a very diluted time. And none
yeah,
of us are above being deceived. Like I don't say that from this hilltop of like I can no, I done been deceived before. I've been thinking I've been doing one thing and it's not that, or I've been deceived by people, like, and in the end, like it says that even the very elect, like the very elect could be deceived, like if the Lord doesn't come in and kind of snatch us out. So it's like we have to be humble enough to know that we when we miss our mark, like we can be deceived, but also know that like you don't have to live your life for these views and these likes and these people, especially if it's not the life that is actually you. Like, and we talk to our young people about that. Like this last session, like faking it till you make it. Like, like what's up with that? Like, why do you feel like you need to do that? Why are you lying online? Who are you trying to impress? Like, what? At the very least, to get them thinking about these things, so that hopefully, as they grow in their lives, and if they want to do content stuff, that they can identify, okay, I'm doing this because I know if I do this, it's going to cause this type of reaction. And maybe they'll have a checkpoint in their mind and say, that's not authentic, or that's not right, or that's not good, or I'm just doing this because I want some people to laugh, but it's to somebody's detriment. Like we want to be able to instill those checkpoints and that dissonance so that they can navigate this stuff better, because we see as adults we don't always navigate it well. And then you add money and pressure and all this other stuff to it, like they're gonna we gotta be able to combat that.
Yeah, any of us, you said, I love that you said that. Like any of us could fall victim of that, like me included. And I think that's what
Yeah,
some people mistaken when you talk about something that you're concerned about, as if you think you're exempt. It's like, no, I'm
yeah,
concerned for me, for you, for all of us, that we're living in this society and we're just accepting and willingly living in a society where we're going to apply pressure to
yeah,
each other because we're all faking and we're trying to be something we're not with our content, with whatever. And even, like we talked
yeah,
about, like trying to live up to these status symbols. And that's why with me, where it's like what I've tried to do, right? And again, I'm constantly observing and critiquing my own content to make sure that
yeah,
I'm keeping the focus. But what I've tried to do is focus more on the how to than the what. And what I mean by that is like there are so many people, because I talk about, finances
mm,
and business a lot. It's like what
yeah,
I'm trying to do in real time is actually show people a playbook to escape poverty, because I grew up in and around
yeah,
poverty and understand how damaging it is, spiritually, physically, financially, and in so many ways. But what's crazy to me is that people don't want to hear it unless you're showing them something. And I made a
yeah,
conscious decision, like I'm not here to show you a car, a house. I'm not here to show you anything if you're not
yeah,
gonna appreciate substance and be attracted to substance, then you're gonna miss what I'm trying to do. Because
yeah,
then now I'm putting myself in this weird position. Let's say, as an example, start trying to like show people cars and say, "Hey, you should listen to Inspire Guys People because
yeah,
I was broke and I got this kind of car." And then it's like, now, what happened if I lose that car? Now my whole identity is wrapped up in when you see me or when I'm out, I gotta be wearing this.
yeah,
Like I tell people all the time, no, you catch me in the grocery store. I saw this dude the other day. Only reason I
mhm.
didn't say what up because I get confused with, do I know people in real life or do I know them from the internet? Because I don't forget faces. But I saw this dude
That's
in the grocery
funny.
store. We looked at each other. I was like, dang, he probably thinking like, when I tell you I go to the grocery store looking like somebody crazy uncle, like I throw on whatever jogging pants, whatever gym
You be like
shoes
the
at the
people at
door.
Walmart.
Oh man, it's bad. I'm not gonna lie, it's bad. I be comfortable, but it's bad. But my point with all of that is, even with all of that, it's like for me, I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I'm not about to turn going to the grocery store or the car wash into like me having to like get dressed for y'all. If you gonna judge me because I look toe up today, then guess what? That's just what it is. And so I think we have to be comfortable. We have to learn how to become more comfortable with who we really are and allow people to
Absolutely.
think and feel what they want to. Um,
uh
look,
1000% agree.
I've enjoyed this, Alexandria. Look,
Me
I wanna
too.
do a couple rapid fire before we get out of here. And shout out to
Okay.
everybody in the comments.
Hey,
Appreciate
oh,
and love
Henry.
y'all. I see you got some people in here, some of your people that rock
Yeah,
with
my
you. So
cousin. I
thank
love
y'all.
y'all.
Couple rapid fire, just quick. 30 seconds or
Okay.
less answers
Cause
on
I be
this. These
talking
are some.
long,
Oh
long
no,
and
no,
strong.
you. Oh, trust me, like you. I'm more so trying to be respectful of your time. We'll be here all day dealing with me because I love talking through this stuff.
Listen,
Um,
I have no problem, but I understand we got time frames.
yeah. So I want to ask you a couple things, just things I saw on
Okay.
your website, and like things you said about yourself that were interesting to me, right?
Okay.
So the first one that stood out is you call yourself an ambivert. I never ever hearing, that's what I call myself. Whenever I'm introducing myself to
Yeah.
a new team
New
at work or
people.
something, that's on my
Yeah.
slide. A lot of people don't know what an ambivert is or why you would call yourself that. So can you tell us,
Yeah.
a little bit about why you call yourself an ambivert?
Most people who meet me think that I am an extrovert. I'm loud. Probably catch me doing something silly. I'm very unserious, but I'm also very serious. And so I think naturally I probably had some extrovert tendencies, but I am actually more of an introvert. And so I recharge by myself. I like my alone time. I like quiet. I like stillness. I don't need to be doing a lot. And so what I found when I did like one of those personality tests, that I really fell in the middle. I was like 51% introvert and like 49% extrovert, and what they call it as an ambivert. And so earlier I said that I'm really this split of like technical mind and creative. I found in my life that I am often kind of not emotionally, but in a lot of things, very extremes. I'm like all the way over here on this, but I'm also this. And so I think that that tension though allows me to flow in and out of a lot of stuff really well.
I love it. Yeah, I'm actually the same way. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
ambivert for almost identical reasons that you said.
Mhm.
Very creative person. And I'll give you an example of where sometimes that's challenging. When I'm in the creative
Yes.
world and around my people who make music and things like that,
Mhm.
those people are not technical at all. They don't like business at all, and so it's like all creative. And I'm like constantly sometimes talking to them like, hey bro, you gotta do A, B, and C, or what about this part in your, like, I know we dropping albums or like we want to invest in this, but like you need to get your credit together. And then I go to the
Well, like
business
there's some
world.
craft to this. Some
Yeah, like, and like it's some balance. And then I go to the business
yeah,
world and I'm like, sometimes people lack so much creativity. They're just all technical. And
true,
I'm like,
true.
so yeah, it's weird. It could be a gift in a lot of ways because it allows you to navigate, and it can be challenging sometimes because you never actually feel 100% aligned with the things that
Yeah,
you are into. In every group, you can feel like a
yeah,
contrarian. So
yeah.
interesting. Okay, next
Which is
rapid
frustrating
fire.
sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Next rapid fire, I wanted to ask you about this idea that you want to spend a season of your life as a nomad. Why would someone want to do that? Why do you want to do that? And what do you plan to get out of that season of your life?
I don't know that it'll ever happen. I remember in college I wanted to I'm gonna go backpack. My mom was like, "Girl, you better get your head out the sky." But I also was like, later on, I was like, it's just some stuff that black people ain't seen yet. And later on in life, you realize it's some other people out here doing this fine. She was like, "You ain't got no money. You ain't never been no, She was like, go travel and do stuff, but you gonna backpack across where?" And so I've always been kind of the hippie of my family in a sense, like
Okay.
and so for me, I watch a lot of YouTube channels of like people who live full time on the road, maybe in a van, in a sprinter van, or they're traveling. And for me, I think that that's cool. And as a single person, like that ideal of like solace and that introverted part of me is like I get to enjoy a lot of different things and kind of take my life with me as I go. So I think that's the biggest piece of it. I don't know if I want to be crammed in a van with a husband and and we in there like this, but I like the
Right.
ideal of moving from place to place and seeing new things, eating new food because I love food, and you know, doing something a
That
little
was
different. I'm
that was
unconventional
the
in a lot of
next one.
ways.
That was the
Yeah,
next one I was gonna ask about this idea that food is your
feed
love
me,
language. Like,
feed me.
okay.
Let's
All right,
cook,
so
let's eat.
I got a question along those lines. Then,
Okay,
where do you have a favorite restaurant? Whether it be, I know you from Flint, you've
man.
spent time in Detroit. Where's somewhere that you like to eat or a favorite food in general?
So I suck at favorites, so I don't really have a favorite restaurant, but I just like to eat. Like if we're gonna travel somewhere, some people are like, I want to see the museums, I want to do what the people do. I'm like looking up all the restaurants, looking at the pictures, trying to figure out what I want to eat. So I yeah, I don't have any favorites. I love everything. Indian food, Thai food, black folk food, Mexican food. Like I love
Okay,
to cook. I love, so no favorites, just feed me. Like
okay.
when my
Food
friends
is
and I link
food
up, we
is
get some food, take a nap on the couch, and then get up and talk about deep stuff.
So food is really the love language. Got you. Well, look,
Yeah.
before we get out of here, can you just tell the people where they can find you, where they contact you if they want to get some photos, if someone wants to
Hmm.
learn about your youth program and follow that, like tell them where they
Yeah.
can find you and how they can stay connected.
All right. So on social media, my business is Alexandria Chrisele Photo. And that's also my website, alexandriacrislephoto.com. And there you'll find all of my high school seniors, headshot and branding stuff. And also the youth program information is housed there as well, the young influencers. Online for the young influencers, IG is the period young influencers, same on TikTok, and also on Facebook. And then I've pivoted my business because one of the things is I need to free up time to be able to do more with the young influencers, and also kind of after my mom passed away, I just didn't feel like I had the capacity to do a lot of one-off stuff. As I pivoted to a business called Alongside Multimedia Agency, and we are tackling a large-scale event and conference photo content, video coverage. And we also offer headshot stations for conferences who want to kind of elevate what they provide their attendees to. So we have a system where we can come in and do headshots rather quickly for large amounts of amounts of attendees, and also deliver that quickly. So 3 different things, and that's at Alongside MA on Instagram, and alongsidema.com for the website.
That's dope. What are some big events that you've had the opportunity to work on?
I have been a part of TEDx Detroit for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's always fun because you get to meet people and the speakers. And I've done the speaker headshots there. Obviously, anything that I've done for my brother had partnerships with the Detroit Pistons and Tom Gore? Sorry if I'm getting it wrong. And he did courts here in Flint where he designed and painted those courts, and so I've been able to help capture some of that. I'm sure there's other dope things that I've done places, but I'm trying to think. I've done stuff for Foot Locker. I've done stuff for local brands and some national brands too, but I don't be keeping score enough to recall them. But I'm grateful that I've had a lot of really cool opportunities. Oh, Brooklyn Nets. I got to do media day for the Brooklyn Nets a few years ago too with a friend. And so that was
Nice.
cool. Yeah.
Well, Alexandria, I could tell you, man, this has been a joy for me. I definitely
I've
appreciate
enjoyed
you.
it so much too.
I'm inspired by what you're doing in the community, inspired by
Thank
your faith, your tenacity, and your focus on young people. Keep going, man. Like, one thing I will say
thank
is we
you.
need more people like you in the body of Christ doing it in this authentic way, right? This that is
Yeah.
just I just resonate with, and I've appreciated for a long time from afar, and was looking forward to having a conversation with you on Inspire God's People, and it was definitely well worth it to me. So please do stay in touch. You know, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. Please, community, Inspire God's People community, check out Alexandria and the work that she's doing.
Thank you.
Keep her in your prayers and all that good stuff. And y'all have an amazing day out
Wait, I
there.
gotta tell
And
you
it's
thank you
oh,
though. Let me tell
okay,
you
go
thank
ahead,
you first, because
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
want to say thank you to you, and that I'm inspired by you, because I don't know how many people follow you, if they knew or if they true, but
Mhm.
you be dropping nuggets. I be reposting and copying and pasting your stuff everywhere. So I'm grateful that you felt, that I would be a good person to come here, and I've enjoyed our conversation, and I also appreciate real people. And so I just want to say thank you, and that you're dope also. So you got to let me say thank you too before we got off.
Yeah, that's what's up. I appreciate you, and much love to everybody in the comments. Y'all stay
Yeah,
connected.
thank you.
Inspire Guys People on YouTube. You will see this interview, and then the daily, you'll see a lot of stuff chopped up. There's a lot of good things said today. So we drop daily inspiration at Inspire Guys People on YouTube, continuing to grow that. And you can always find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those things. I always tell people, look, if you enjoy the content of this show, the first 4 years of Inspire Guys People happened on audio before I went to video podcasting. And so there's about 160 episodes of audio Inspire Guys People on Apple Podcasts. I've interviewed some amazing people, CEOs of banks. We had Montel Jordan on one time. We had all kind of people that I've interviewed and talked to on the audio
Hell,
show. So yeah, check that out, and hopefully you will be blessed. The other thing about that is that's where I spent a lot of time talking through the foundation of the show, especially because I tap into the business world a lot, and I talk about investing and money. And some people, they hear those type of things, and then they can lose track of the fact that this is happening through the lens of the Bible. So I spent about 100 and something episodes making sure people understood this was about the Bible, talking about why I talk about money and those type of things. So if you ever kind of questioning, like, what is Jermaine on or something like that, I advise you to check out Inspire Guys People on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can listen to podcasts. Alexandria, this has been amazing. Listeners, y'all be